So, let's talk about happiness. Not just every day I found a great parking spot happiness, but what the ancient Taoist philosopher Zhuangzi called supreme happiness. His path to get there? Well, it's pretty radical, and definitely not what you'd expect.
And really, let's start with the question Zhuangzi himself asked, one that kind of gets to the core of everything, right? Does that kind of perfect, supreme happiness even exist in this world? Or are we all just chasing shadows?
Zhuangzi noticed this weird paradox. You know, we spend our entire lives chasing after things like wealth, status, a nice long life. But, I mean, think about it for a second. The super rich, they're often completely exhausted trying to make and protect all that money. The powerful, they're always anxious, constantly looking over their shoulder. And even people who live a really long time can end up just worrying. It's like the very things we're told will make us happy are actually the source of all our stress.
Okay, so if the conventional path is a dead end, what's the alternative? Well, Zhuangzi's answer. It pretty much challenges everything we think we know about how to live. It's a whole different way of moving through the world.
And that answer is something called Wu Wei. Now, you might have heard this term, but honestly, it's one of the most misunderstood ideas in all of Eastern philosophy. Literally, it translates to non-action, but what it really means, well, it's so much more subtle and way more powerful than that.
Yeah, the biggest mistake people make is thinking Wu Wei is about being lazy or just giving up, but it's not that at all. The reality is more like effortless action or intelligent flow. It's that feeling when you're so in sync with what you're doing that there's no wasted energy, no fighting against it. You know the difference between trying to force a key into a lock versus just letting it slide in perfectly? That's Wu Wei.
Here's a great way to think about it. A master surfer. They don't try to fight the ocean, right? That would be totally pointless and you'd be exhausted in 2 seconds. No, they feel the power of the wave, they understand it, and they use its own energy to just glide. That is the absolute essence of Wu Wei. It's about aligning with the forces that are already there instead of trying to brute force your way through life.
Okay, so this effortless action thing sounds great for, surfing or getting a key in a lock, but what about the really big stuff? The huge emotional challenges we all face? Well, let's dive into one of Zhuangzi's most famous and honestly kind of shocking stories. It's about finding this flow even when you're facing the deepest loss imaginable.
So the story goes that when Zhuangzi's wife died, his friend rushed over to comfort him. But what he finds is Zhuangzi sitting there, banging on a pot and singing. His friend is, as you can imagine, furious. But Zhuangzi's response is just fascinating. He actually admits, look, when she first died, how could I not be sad? He wasn't some emotionless robot. He felt the grief, he was human. And that's what makes what he says next so incredibly powerful. He explained that, after that first wave of grief washed over him, he started thinking, where did she even come from? And he traced it all the way back. He realized her life wasn't just this one-and-done thing. It was just one step in this long cosmic dance of transformations. Before she was born, there was no life, no form, just this universal energy, this chi. And that energy came together to become her. So her death, it wasn't an end. It was just the next transformation, a return to that cosmic energy.
He put it so beautifully. He said, life and death are like the rotation of the 4 seasons. So for him to just wail and grieve forever would be like crying every single year when summer turns into fall. It's fighting the natural flow of how things work. And by aligning himself with that reality, by practicing Wu Wei, he didn't see his wife as gone. He saw her as just resting peacefully in this great big room of the universe. His grief didn't vanish, it transformed into this deep, calm acceptance.
Okay, so that story really challenges how we think about grief, right? Reframing it as a natural cycle. But this next one goes even further. It challenges our most basic instinct, the attachment to being alive. This is the truly bizarre story of Zhuangzi's conversation with a skull.
Yeah, so he finds this skull on the road, uses it as a pillow for the night, as you do, and the skull appears to him in a dream. And it makes this absolutely wild claim. It says the joy of death surpasses the joy of being a king. Now think about that. A king has everything we're told to want: power, wealth, respect. How could being dead possibly be better than that?
Well, the skull breaks it down with this really stark comparison. Life, it argues, is basically a prison. You've got bosses, you've got social ladders to climb, you've got endless deadlines, KPIs, all that stress, and you've always got that clock ticking down. But in death, all of that just vanishes.
There are no kings above you, no servants below, there's no grind. Time itself just stretches out into infinity. It's a state of absolute, total freedom.
So Zhuangzi, being a little skeptical, offers to bring the skull back to life. And the skull is horrified. It basically says, "Are you kidding me? Why would I ever trade this king's joy to go back to the grind of the human world?" I mean, this just flips everything we're taught to value completely on its head. The skull doesn't see death as a loss at all. It sees it as the ultimate escape, the final liberation from all the stress and striving that makes up so much of human life.
All right, so we've looked at how we relate to our own life, our own death. But Zhuangzi's philosophy isn't just about us. It's also about how we interact with others. And he tells this simple but really profound little story, a parable about a king and a rare seabird, that shows just how dangerous our good intentions can be.
So, this beautiful, rare seabird lands in the kingdom, and the king of Lu decides he's going to treat it like royalty. But just look at this tragic mismatch. The king gives it everything he thinks is great. A grand temple to live in, a royal feast with beef and lamb, the best court musicians. He's treating the bird like a human. But what does a seabird actually need? A forest, little fish, the freedom to just fly around. The king's care was basically a death sentence. The poor bird died of stress in 3 days.
The king's failure here was just profound. As Zhuangzi puts it, he tried to nourish a bird with what nourishes oneself. He completely failed to practice a kind of social wu wei. He didn't align with the bird's true nature. Instead, he just imposed his own values on it, assuming his way was obviously the best way. And it's such a powerful warning for all of us, isn't it? About the hidden arrogance that can come with even our best intentions.
So you might be wondering, how do all these different pieces fit together? You've got effortless action, accepting death, understanding others. What's the connection? Well, it turns out they all come from one single, huge, unifying idea about what reality even is.
Zhuangzi basically saw the universe as this one great, unending process of transformation. Everything is just constantly flowing into everything else. He believed that everything, I mean a seed, a star, you, me, it all comes from and returns to this one single unseen source. He called it the cosmic mechanism. You can think of it like the universe's operating system or its fundamental source code. It's the engine that drives all of this eternal change.
And if you can really wrap your head around that, if you can accept that you're just one small part of this endless cosmic flow, it leads to a truly staggering conclusion. First part, you were never truly born. Your birth wasn't to start from scratch. It was just one more transformation in a series that has been going on forever.
And, of course, the other side of that same coin is you will never truly die. Your death isn't the end of the line. It's just the next transformation. Your form, your energy, it all just returns to the source code, ready for whatever comes next.
Another Taoist master, Zhuangzi, put this mind-bending idea so perfectly. He said, "Only you and I know that we have never truly died and never truly been born." So from this point of view, our individual lives, they aren't these separate, finite stories with a beginning and an end. We're more like temporary ripples on the surface of this eternal ocean of being.
And that brings us right back to you, to the final takeaway. Because this isn't just some abstract ancient philosophy. It's a tool you can use for living right now. So here's the question. If you could truly, deeply accept this idea, that you are just a temporary part of an eternal cycle, what modern anxiety would just lose its grip on you? Your career, your status, your worries about the future? Which one would just melt away? Because maybe, just maybe, as Zhuangzi suggests, letting go of all that is the real secret to supreme happiness. And that's a pretty powerful thought to leave you with.